throw away a lot of money owning a home.
When you buy that house, you're buying that zip code.
They were so against taking a loss that they kept it.
10+ year holding period tends to be this kind of clear cliff. Is it even worth buying property anymore? With all the changes in the property market, I'm really not convinced it's the best way to build wealth.
Well, I'm here to argue that in 2026, buying real estate is still an effective way to build wealth.
Well, let the debate begin. I mean, it's a really good question because it's not black and white. Our parents' generation always told us it's the only way to build wealth over time. And it's not, you own a home and you're okay and you don't own a home and you're not okay. There's a lot of nuance that goes into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And, attorneys would love this answer, but the answer is it depends. And, I think about, when I look at, one of the major traps people fall into is they buy a home too early, they buy a home that they can't afford, and that home then sucks more capital, sucks more money out of them than it puts into their net worth.
Yeah, and what you can afford and what you can't afford is a really interesting trade-off because it's not just about pure cash flow. Say you want to buy $1 million home, 20% down, you're putting $200,000 down. Great, can you afford that or not is a question of do you have $200,000 in your bank account? Mm-hmm. But now you've got an $800,000 mortgage, you've got insurance, taxes, that creates cash flow consequences. And then really importantly on top of that is all your cash flow going into your house as opposed to into living your life as well as saving for the future.
When people come to me and say, I want to buy a home because I'm tired of throwing away money with rent, it's like nails on a chalkboard because you throw away a lot of money owning a home too. You don't get the property taxes you pay back. If your roof needs to get repaired, you don't get that back. A home is a negative cost of carry, meaning you have to pay to own the asset. That said, people aren't totally wrong in that monthly payment that you are making towards your mortgage, part of that is going to pay down the principal, which is increasing your net worth over time. So yes, it's not 100% going towards building up the asset base. There is money that you do waste, quote unquote, when you do own a home, but a good portion of that is going towards building your net worth.
Yeah, and it's that forced savings element of, a lot of people lack the discipline to put the money aside every month. Mm-hmm. However, the question that I always ask is it the most efficient place to save? Mm-hmm. So if you do not lack the discipline, so you do have the discipline to actually save the money, is it the best place to be saving your money? Mm-hmm. And that's a nuanced question.
Yeah, and that's where I say that it is a component of building wealth, and it is a very important component to building wealth because you have to live somewhere. Yeah. So you might as well live in an asset that's growing over time, historically speaking. But it shouldn't be the core component of your wealth building strategy. Put in the context of a financial plan, we're also able to contribute to your retirement accounts. We're able to contribute to 529 accounts. When you're building up your liquid asset base, if you can do that in conjunction with owning real estate, net, real estate does win compared to renting over time, most of the time.
Yeah, and there's this really complicated piece in there that's the impact of leverage. Mm-hmm. So
that's
if your price does go up by virtue of only having put down a portion of that total price, you're actually sharing more of the growth than pro rata your contribution, which is not something you can visualize in your mind. Like leverage is really difficult to visualize.
It works the other way though too.
It totally works the other way. And that's kind of where I wanted to get to is the zip code lottery of it all. Mm-hmm. When you buy that house, you're buying that zip code. Mm-hmm. You don't know what's going to happen there. We always say the disclaimer, like past results aren't indicative of future performance. Mm-hmm. Like you don't know what's going to happen in the future in that neighborhood. You might have a good sense of it, but it's risk. Mm-hmm. And so you're very concentrated in this single asset with loads of variables which can skew the performance over time. Mm-hmm. And that's just the definition of risk.
Yeah, it's so interesting when people talk about the stock market being risky. And I don't want to be in the stock market, I want to buy real estate. It's like you are buying a single asset class that, to your point, is part of the zip code lottery. It's also exposed to natural disasters. There's a lot of things that can happen to that single asset class. When I look at our diversified stock portfolio, like sure, there's volatility and there is risk, but it's way more spread out than owning a single asset as your primary driver for building wealth. The mistake people make with buying, especially when they stretch themselves, is it's highly unlikely that you are going to leave the house as is. So it is important to note that, when you buy, you have to factor in a lot of other expenses. But here's another thing too. Not every decision you make needs to be strictly a financial decision. Right? There's a lot of good reasons. There are a lot of good reasons to own a home. It's a place to raise a family. There's stability. You get to be a part of the community. You're not going to have a landlord come to you and say, we're moving back into the place. So there are a lot of benefits that homeownership provides.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing that I look at is I see property as a lifestyle asset rather than an investment class. And while it is something that will probably hold its value over time, it's probably not going to grow my wealth the way that financial investments will. And as a result, it's a matter of balancing out the financial investments versus lifestyle investments over time. And so getting into that fixed property piece requires you have sufficient other investments too to diversify away from that single asset class exposure. The second thing is I don't know where I want to be long term. And the cost of moving is huge. And that's not just like moving trucks. There's an estimate, I think Zillow estimates it's 6 to 10% on the way out of selling a property.
Of course, yeah.
And that's just your transaction fees. So if you buy a property and subsequently move, your transaction costs alone of buying and selling a house are already high. And so part of renting for me is about having the flexibility to choose and try things out and figure out where that longer term home is, such that I can really dig down and form that community.
Yeah, in this heated debate, I have to say I agree with you on this. And I am also a renter. And look, I could buy my apartment if I wanted to. When we looked at what were the costs going to be with the apartment association dues, with the property taxes, et cetera, it actually worked out to be more than our rents. And kind of like you, we don't necessarily know what the long-term plan is going to be in terms of location. So renting just allows us to have a lower monthly cost. It allows us to keep the capital invested in the market and in other places. And it provides a lot of flexibility, which we need right now.
Yeah.
But I would imagine you would agree, based on all the plans that you've done, if there's a fact pattern where, a young family that is buying their quote unquote forever home, and let's say forever is at least 10 years, they can afford the monthly payments. They can also put money in their retirement accounts. They're putting money into their brokerage accounts. They're diversifying their asset base, that buying a home in that instance is better than renting.
Yeah, for so many reasons. Young, small family, have kids in schools, you've got a semblance of community, you want that security to know that you can be there through elementary, middle school, and you can move in high school. And those elements are so much more than the pure financial decisions. And that particular life stage you mentioned, it's invaluable.
And to your point, there is a saving element of it.
Yeah.
In that every month you are building your net worth by virtue of paying down some of that principal.
Yeah.
So, and it is an asset that over time should grow.
Yeah, on the greater scheme of things, something that's a higher probability upside than downside when you zoom out those 10 years. And that's important. You said over 10 years. And
right.
What happens in 2 years is completely unknown. Very similar to the stock market. We don't want to put 2-year money into the market because the volatility could work for or against you. Same thing with property. You don't want to be subject to the market liquidity in that moment and suddenly be a forced seller.
That was a conversation I had with a client in 2008. She's panicking over what was going on in the stock market, and rightfully so, and wanted to sell. And I said, wait, selling is the wrong move. This was at the bottom. I'm like, your home went down in value because real estate prices have gone down over the last year. So, but based on this logic, you should want to sell your home. And she's like, but I don't have to. I said, you don't have to sell your stocks either. And she kept both. And of course, then participated in the rebound back up. Another thing too that we haven't talked about yet are the tax advantages of owning real estate. In that, you do get a deduction on the mortgage interest that you pay every month versus renting, where you just write the rent check and there's 0 tax advantages.
Yeah, no doubt about that. But depending on the size of your home, that interest deduction may be limited too. Married filing joint, you've got a limit of $750,000 of loan against which you can deduct the interest. So if you buy a house where you're borrowing $1 million, only 75% of that $1 million worth of interest is actually deductible. So it's not a black and white calculation of there's a tax write-off, therefore you can pay less in taxes. The write-off guy's got it.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. The tax write-off isn't always a solution.
Yeah.
I think it brings up an important point though. When you take into account that tax deduction, it is of course a net benefit against renting. There's no doubt. But how much benefit it is against renting depends on so many variables. If you want to max out on the benefits, you keep the mortgage under that $750,000 cap, from a perfect financial model perspective, as much leverage in it as possible is a good idea. So take as big a mortgage as possible. Now, from a risk management perspective, that's a terrible idea. So we've got to weigh those two up. But I think the most important one is time frame. The longer you hold the property for, the more compound growth there is. 10 plus year holding period tends to be this kind of clear cliff where those transaction fees actually fall away as being fundamental to the decision, and you can move more into like what are the other variables in moving around. What about you? Do you have anything else you would add?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just really understanding your motivation behind it. You know, and if it's just purely a financial one, there are better ways to build wealth than real estate.
The one other thing I wanted to talk about is like when you look at those motivations where people are saying, well, you know, I know this neighborhood's going to be the one. Which neighborhoods tend to be the ones where people absolutely kill it? It's those in which you're kind of undesirable to live in from the outset.
Yeah, from the beginning. It is also too kind of factoring in other life variables, such as, you know, they have an hour and a half commute one way to the office. You know, they're in a place that they don't necessarily want to live, away from their friends and their family. And it's one of those things like, is that actually worth it? Like, you do have to take those things into consideration. But another point I want to make too, that a big mistake that I've seen people make, kind of on your point with the fact that real estate doesn't always go up, is people who hold on to real estate too long because they don't want to take a loss on it. You don't always win.
Okay, so there are pros and cons here. When do you think it would make more sense to actually buy than to rent in the current market?
I think it goes back to if you're doing it for right motivations, if it is something that's going to provide a lot of benefit to your family, if you can live there for at least 10 years, or at least that is the plan. But also it's important to note too that your monthly payment should be under 30% of your gross income. Homes are expensive. Things do happen. You don't want to be overextended where you have zero wiggle room for life to happen. We see this all the time where we look at what someone's been pre-approved for, and then we have to say, okay, but this is what we approve you for to make it make sense on the plan. And typically speaking, it's under the 30% of gross monthly income.
And there's a bit of risk there because we're basically telling people you need to own the property for 10 plus years. But what if they can't afford a place that they want to be in 10 years' time?
For me personally, and what I caution is, it's okay to wait.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay, especially for our clients who are in their, you know, mid 30s or so. There's this anxiety of like, I need to own now. If you buy a place at 38 instead of 35, it's not going to be the end of the world. And you really do want to make sure that you're financially ready for it.
Yeah, and the trade-off of property price growth in those small years that you're waiting is definitely justified by that.
That's right.
The transaction cost.
That's right.
I think there's also a world in which it makes sense to own property when you have deep insecurity as to what's going to happen to your rental market in your area.
That's a good point.
Yeah, we spoke about, you know, small kids and the like. If you're in a school and you're in a community and you're renting, and you know, I had clients who were in Westchester in New York, and they were so entrenched in the school system and they were renting, but the rent started going up by double digits every year, that they had to stretch to buy a house that they might otherwise not have bought. And it was like, hey guys, financially, this is a huge stretch. Is it worth it for the benefits otherwise? And we weighed them all up, and the psychological way outweighed the financial consequences, in which case it did make sense. If you worked one more year at the end of your plan, would it make it worth it to have been in that house for an extra 10 years? And people invariably are like, yeah. You mean I don't have to get anxious every year for my rent increase?
Yeah, that's right.
You mean my kids can have continuity in their school? You mean I can live nearby the community that I care about in perpetuity? Like, of course I'm going to sign up for that. I would work an extra 5 years for that benefit.
Well, I have to say, this has been a very heated, spirited debate. I don't know if I've convinced you otherwise. How do you feel about homeownership now?
Well, it depends.
I was going to give the same answer.